Well, I can't think of a man that's more responsible and a better special guest picker for this weekend than our friend, former star, just star in general.
Current star.
David Pollack.
Yeah.
What
there
is up,
he is.
dude?
What's up, dudes? Thanks, y'all, for having me in. What a great sell on the vitamins there. You're just a pro now, bro.
Listen, look, I do what I can over here. We take the ad read super duper cereal around here. DP, I want to ask you just a couple of the generic things we've been tossing around before we get into these games. You know, what is your view on the playoff rankings as they sit right now with what happened with Alabama and Miami? And then what do you think should happen to the loser of a conference championship game?
I've gone back and forth on this. I don't think every conference is created equally.
Yeah.
So that means every loss in the conference championship game isn't created equally. I think how the game's played and what the result is, you know, obviously with SMU will be a team that we'll talk about. Like, just if they did lose to Clemson and they were in a position where they have that loss, that extra loss in the conference championship game. It was a great game back and forth. Does that change the way the committee looks at it? So I think there's a multitude of ways. Man, it's going to tick me off every year. I'm going to always try not to lose my patience with the committee, but we're going to, because it's not going to make sense. And it's never going to make sense because you've got 12 different people with 12 different backgrounds, with 12 different sets of eyeballs that see things differently than you do and that see things differently than each other does. And some people like the bass, some people like the treble, some people like the personality, right? Like there's going to be all different walks and all different types. And so it's a frustrating thing to look at, but I would say that as long as it's not a beatdown in any of these games, I don't know how you punish someone for going to their championship game. Georgia got punished a year ago for playing a really good team in the ACC Championship game. Still, everybody thought they were one of the 4 best teams, but they're out of the mix. And I hope we're in a world where that doesn't exist anymore.
DP, I agree with you. And again, we're referencing teams that are already in the playoff, not like Clemson, who has to win to get in, or like UNLV, who has to win to get in, or whatever. It's the teams already in there. I do want to ask you this because I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. We've talked about structurally what metrics we would want to determine the top 12. But what you don't hear people talk about, and Flame and Dragon brought this up earlier, what is the process that the committee goes through to reach a decision? We know the way a jury works in the United States. There's a foreman of the jury, but he doesn't have the ultimate power to decide if somebody's guilty or not guilty. So what happens if, in the committee, you say 10 people, 4 people think this and 6 people think that, or 5 people think this and 5 people think that, and it's kind of hung? Does Ward Manuel just be able to go in there? Is he the guy that can say, well, regardless, this is what's going to happen? So we don't even know the process of how things are decided. At least I don't. Maybe I haven't, seen it and they've talked about it, but I don't know.
I've actually done the mock in the rooms. They do a mock, and you go in there and you sit down and you get a season, and you take your teams and you make debates on, your points, and people come in with different viewpoints, and you literally sit down and you talk about these teams in clusters. So they come in like little tiny clusters of 3, and you can talk about them and you compare them to each other. And listen, the criteria we have is pretty simple, and the criteria we have would solve a lot of the disputes. Head-to-head's a big part of the criteria. Like, that's listed as the number 1 option. Common opponents. Like, when you start to go to Alabama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and those next 3 teams in, you have head-to-head protocols. You have common opponent protocols. Alabama and Ole Miss played a lot of the same teams. Ole Miss beat Georgia at a higher rate and was dominant the whole game against Georgia. Ole Miss destroyed South Carolina. Alabama barely beat South Carolina. So some of the criteria that's in place right now that they've talked about are right there in front of us, but they're not used and they're not talked about. And so that's where people start, getting angry, and people start talking about the brands and why does this team get this advantage and this team doesn't. And, you see a lot of teams in college football right now that have they have a strong resume as a record, but it's not as a strength of schedule. And we all know that. And we all try to take that into account, but there's no formula to take it into account correctly. I have a proposal. To me, this makes this very easy, or makes it easier to do the cross promotion or cross pollination. Every team in every conference plays at least one team from another conference. So if you're an SEC team, you play an ACC team. You play a Big 12 team. You play a Big 10 team. Every single crossover matchup now will matter. We'll have more data points. We'll have more strength of schedule. We'll have teams with more losses. We'll have more common opponents. So I think that would cure up some of this stuff where we're going, haven't lost yet, haven't beat anybody either, but the record looks really, really good. Oh, they've been dominant against so-and-so. Haven't played anybody. I think that could help fix some of those conversations and debates we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit like the NFL and Major League Baseball with the divisions. I'm so glad you pointed out comparing teams with each other within the conference, because I've been saying that for a few weeks. Anytime we can use the conference's own tiebreaker scenarios, let's go ahead and use those and not pit them against themselves, but that's how those conferences would decide who goes to the championship game. Why can't we use those also for the postseason? But David Pollack, you're one of the greatest players in the history of this sport, a gamer of the highest order. You strapped it up every single week, gave it the best you had. Does it frustrate you to hear coaches and fans alike question the importance of these conference championship games moving forward? Or do you just see it as a chess match and it's just a strategy that's going to have to be reckoned with?
Well, it's kind of like all of these awesome rivalries that we loved for so long, and then they just disappear and they're gone. And you kind of get frustrated as a fan, but you also used to love the sport from a purist standpoint when the kids were fighting for the name on their helmet, not the money in their bank account. So it continues to change. We need to continue to change. We need to evolve. At some point, you want to make this a little bit less confusing. And another thing that drives me nuts, okay, I play defense. Y'all know this. I'm not the brightest dude in the world. I'm so sick and tired of seeing rankings and then seedings and numbers on top of numbers. Like, can you just give me one good formula? Like, can we go, if you're the Big Ten and you are in the SEC and you run the sport, like, let's be honest, from a revenue standpoint, like, they run the sport. Figure out a way to get AFC, NFC. Figure out a way to file these teams in to make this easier, to make this not as complex, not as complicated, because the conference championship games, Rhett Lashley said it. He was like, what if my team got COVID? I wouldn't even have to play this game. We're in the college football playoff. And he's right. And it's like, okay, well, it's just there's too much of that stuff, man. Too much confusion, too much annoying things, and we just continue to lose some of the things we love about the sport.
No doubt. Do you have anything before we do our pick'em?
Well, we have a $5 donation here from Genty for Life. He wants to know, David, do you think there's SEC bias in the playoff committee?
I think there is good football bias. So if that means that there's SEC bias, sure. I think there's better teams consistently in the SEC. And this year is a good example of, like, you want to run that gamut in the SEC, it's a tough one, man. Like, y'all have talked about it all year long. Like, Vanderbilt's a good team. South Carolina comes out of nowhere. They're a good team. I don't think Missouri's an elite team by any stretch, but they're good enough to beat you and have great players. So I think they're a great league. I think they have the best top to bottom league in the conference. So if that's the case, then yes.
Well, can I throw this in here too, but before we get to the games? Because we have a bad problem, I think, in media in general, not just sports media, in not understanding that multiple things can be true at the same time. I think the SEC has earned the benefit of the doubt that they are typically the best conference in the country over a span of time.
Yeah.
A trust factor, right? Now, that doesn't mean that every year they are the best conference in all of football. There are some years where maybe the Big Ten's better, right? And it's not a lot, but the SEC has earned the benefit of the doubt. But that also can mean that the ACC is a good conference, a quality conference. The Big 12 is a fun, quality conference. Just because we can say the SEC is a great conference isn't saying everybody else sucks. We have this bad thing of, oh, well, the SEC is the best conference. You're basically saying everybody else is just beneath the SEC and nobody's any good, or nobody can beat the SEC if they play. And then they point to, well, this game and this game and this game. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in aggregate, I think the SEC has earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to being the best conference over a period of time. And we should be able to use that while also saying, look, Illinois can go beat Missouri. That wouldn't shock me. Like we just, for some reason, it's either got to be one or the other. We see this in politics too. You're either heaven or hell. It's either great here and awful here, or awful here and great there. I hate when we get into that problem.
It also depends on how you define what the best conference is. Did you have the single most dominant team that year who
or
won the
best?
championship?
Yeah.
In 2022, Georgia was that, throttled TCU, won the national championship. But the Big Ten had 2 teams make a 4-team college football playoff, so they had more teams at the top. Or is it, hey, which 4 worst teams in your conference could go beat the 4 worst teams in another conference? It opens up a whole conversation.
Hey,
but
I'll say this, guys. To that, I think the gap's smaller than it used to be. And I think the parity in college football is as great as it's ever been, and it ain't going nowhere because the transfer portal has changed that. NIL has changed that. So the talent ain't going to sit on the bench at these major schools anymore to go say, because Kirby and Nick's sales pitch for years, come here, we will develop you so you get paid the big bucks in the NFL. And it worked. It absolutely worked. And they did it. And they put them in the league. Now guys are like, wait a minute. I can get $3 million over the next 3 years anyways? I ain't going anywhere. Like, I'm going over there to get my money that's guaranteed. The NFL's not guaranteed. So I think that there's more parity than there's been because of the transfer portal and because of NIL.
Agreed.
No doubt. All right, David Pollack, we're going to pick these top 5 matchups this weekend. No one better to be here with us than you. We're going to start with Boise State and UNLV, and this one does have playoff implications. Jake, you go first.
Yeah, and it's at Boise State. I want to let everybody know this is a road game for UNLV. You look at Boise State throughout the season. Genty's been incredibly consistent. They've found ways to win games. They played Oregon close. Special teams really cost them at the end, which I think is kudos to Oregon for their ability to play complementary football. But if you go back and watch this matchup before, we're talking about Texas and Georgia playing again and how much fun that's going to be. I think some people forgot Boise State and UNLV have already played. They played earlier in the season. UNLV probably did a better job against Ashton Genty than anybody else did in the country, including Oregon. The problem was they were so focused on Genty, the quarterback in the zone read game and the run game actually hurt them worse than he's hurt anybody really running the whole season. And also Boise State was 4 for 4 on 4th down. And if you go back and watch it, they caught a lot of breaks in that game. So it would make you think, wow, UNLV gets a second shot at them. UNLV's, gonna catch maybe a couple more breaks than they did last time. And I was really coming in here wanting to pick UNLV. I think UNLV plus 4.5 is a really good bet. But sometimes when you know how to win, you just know how to win. And Boise State, it was ugly, down the stretch. They aren't playing great, but they get UNLV at home. I actually think UNLV goes up in this game early, but Boise State just finds a way. I think they beat them by 4 or kick a field goal late to beat them. Give me Boise to find a way once again throughout a year where we've had chaos and a lack of consistency. Boise State to pick up that 12th win and beat UNLV.
Who you got, Blaine?
I got to go Boise, too. I do like UNLV to cover in this football game. I mean, it's at Boise, and even if they held Ashton Genty, he still rushed for 130 yards on 33 carries.
Yeah.
And the quarterback only had 3 carries for 60 yards. So you can tell you how good Ashton Genty is on this. But I'm telling you, man, this is going to be a close football game. I love watching UNLV play football, especially from the offensive side. But Boise, close one.
DP, who you taking? And does Ashton Genty still have a chance to win the Heisman, or is he going to finish second?
He should have a chance to win it. I would love to see him go off for 300 plus and get to that Barry Sanders mark. And now you start talking about like, hey, nobody can deny him, because if you watch him, he's special. I mean, he's super special. I wish he did it against better competition, because he did it against Oregon, who's a filthy defense, and made them look silly. I'll take Boise. I think with a year like we're having, I would not be surprised if UNLV won, because that's just the kind of year we're going through right now. But not only that, Dirk Cutter's calling plays for Boise State, and if you haven't noticed, he's good. Like they do a good job. They design the passing game. They work the tight end screens. Like they have a nice game plan. It ain't just Genty. Like between quarterbacks and tight ends, like I think they've got more than you think, and got a few pass rushers and disruptors on the other side too. So give me Boise on the blue.
All right, I'm going to take UNLV for 3 reasons here. Okay?
I know one of them.
UNLV for 3 reasons. One, I don't want to be the guy who jinxes Boise State on a clean sweep here on the show, and we know how that goes, boys. 2, it's hard to beat a good team twice in the same season. Like you mentioned, Boise State did win at UNLV earlier in the year. And 3, there is a part of me that wants to see a little bit of chaos for our Sunday live stream that we're going to do.
I love where
some people just want to see the world burn.
Okay, some guys want to see the world burn. I'm usually not one of them, but let's go ahead. All right, next one up, Big 12. Someone's got to win the Big 12.
Yeah.
Someone's got to win it. Why not Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham in year 1 going to play Iowa State, Jake?
Look, I don't know which fan tried to fight Matt Campbell before the year, but it was a great decision to fight him before the season as opposed to 4 games in because Iowa State plays better. We've talked about this game. We've broken it down. I can talk about Cam Scattaboo. I can talk about Levitt's legs being, I think, a really underrated part of that offense, and Dillingham being smart enough, even as a young guy, to maybe adjust to his personnel, not exactly what he wants to do offensively. I know he wants to throw the ball around a little bit more, but that's not what's best for this team. I'm just a firm believer in momentum. I think Arizona State's been playing with house money. It's been an incredible year. Iowa State's had a fantastic year. I like Rocco Becht. It's a really great story. But I can't bet against these guys, man. I can't do it, right? We talk about Boise finding ways to win, but Arizona State's physicality, that's what I like. I think Scattaboo kind of embodies their whole team. And if he gets going early in this game, he lifts the rest of this team up. It doesn't matter if you're on offense, if you're on defense, if you're on special teams, or you're the water boy. You're going to play better if Scattaboo's able to have some success early and really set the tone. I think this could be I think it could be a high-scoring game. I think it could be a low-scoring game.
Over-under's at 50 and a half.
It's at 50 and a half. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, but I do like Arizona State to win this game. And, we'll see what happens around them. They could get the 12 seed. Hell, they could get the 3 seed. At the end of the day, give me Arizona State.
Who are you taking?
I think momentum is a real thing. I'll agree with that. Not having Jordan Tyson in this game is going to show up to Arizona State at some point, which is huge. But it's hard for me. As good as Iowa State is, what are they bad at? They're bad at stopping the run, and I promise you Dillingham and Scattaboo are going to pound it at you for 4 quarters. I like Arizona State in this game. You can play the lineup a little bit. I like them 3.5 plus.
DP?
I love what you're saying about Arizona State. I love their toughness. I love Levitt. November, he's been on fire, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. But Tyson is a third of the passing game.
Yeah.
A third. And everything they do they put him in the backfield. They throw quick screens to him. They fake the screens to him. Everything in the passing game goes through zero. Like, that is a real deal. I'm interested to see. And on the other side, man, what's crazy? Before the season, Crain and Co. is doing their show, and everybody's talking about college football, and everybody's getting excited and talking about all the different weapons and all the different receivers and all the different offenses. And you know what everybody talked about before the season? That Iowa State would be the only team in the country with 2 1,000-yard receivers. Everybody had that, right? Yeah. Like Iowa flipping State. They got 2 of them with Higgins and Noel. That's what's crazy. Beck's his numbers always look okay, but he's got something about him. I think it's a barn burner. And if I knew David for sure was going Arizona State, I would easily say the other side right now. So I'd go Iowa State. But there's something to Iowa State. There's something to the running game, even though Kansas State got swallowed up by Iowa State last week and couldn't run the football. But I said earlier in the week, so I'll stick with it. I wish I knew your pick, but 31-24 Sun Devils.
Oh, wow. Score. Wow.
I love it.
Play the
3.5 up.
I love that I'm in his head, though.
Yeah.
I'm in his head on the picks.
I love it.
I think we're in for a really good football game. I think Rocco Becht could play on Sundays one day. The Brock Purdy kid's doing pretty good in the NFL from Iowa State.
Right.
I'm too emotional about Arizona State to not pick them, man. I love this team too much. I'm not saying go put all your money in the world on them. when Cam Scattaboo runs the football, I just love it. I love how they're built. I love Kenny Dillingham. I love the energy afterwards. This guy reminds me of Larry Zonka carrying the football, DP. I just love it. So I'm going to go Arizona State
can't wait to
as
see this
well.
graphic.
Now that graphic's going to jinx the whole game. So
Congrats, Iowa State.
Next one up, Big Ten Championship game. Oregon, only undefeated team, going to play Penn State, not rematch the Buckeyes. Michigan had to go ahead and knock them out of the game. I just remind everybody. Oregon, Penn State, thank you for the laugh. Who are you taking?
Man, I talked all week. Look, Kodal, Nicky, and this offense can't do what they did against Ohio State. They regress back to old Penn State, take our ball, go home, take the air out of the ball. We're up 10 points. Let's not have fun. Let's not be creative. Let's not take shots. I think it's going to be more like a bachelor party on Broadway this weekend, shots left and right. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But James Franklin, I think he's a fantastic football coach. There's just something when I look at this head coaching matchup. I think Penn State is going to actually play pretty decent offensively, but I think Will Stein, I think this Oregon offense with Dylan Gabriel will find a way. I came on here yesterday and said I think in a year where we haven't had a ton of great complementary football, when we don't have really an elite team in all three phases, who's been the most consistent? I think it's been Oregon. If the defense hadn't been playing well, they found a way to win. If the offense struggles, they found a way to win. If both of the offense and defense struggle a little bit, the special teams has come through for them. I'm a believer in Dan Lanning. This is a battle of an immovable object versus an unstoppable force with head coaches that haven't won a lot of big games. So give me Oregon, give me Dylan Gabriel. I think the Ducks quack.
You going to take the underdog?
No, I'm not. If Penn State, if we were down 2 and Penn State was wide open in the corner for 3, I'm not passing to it. I'm taking it. Sooner or later, it doesn't matter what you can say. It just matters what you can prove. And they've proven to me they can't win a big football game. And I know Dylan Gabriel. I know Dan Lanning. If there's anybody I trust, it's Dylan Gabriel in big moments. So give me Oregon. The over is a good bet, but I like Oregon to cover in this.
Y'all both like the over.
But coach, I was open. There's a reason you're open.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason.
Exactly right.
Listen. I get it. I understand it. I adhere to the philosophy. It's more about Oregon than it is about Penn State for me. I just think they're really good. I think they're the most complete team. I think their offense is a problem for every single person who wants to play the game of football in the playoffs because the ball comes out of Gabriel's hands so fast. Elite at wide receiver, elite at tight end, elite at quarterback, making his 62nd start, for gosh sake. 62nd. You heard that right. 62. He's 38. But so the experience, the big plays, it's all there. The only reason this game can be close is because the weakness of the Oregon offense is the absolute strength of the Penn State defense. The offensive line for Oregon is not elite. It's not a dominant group. The front seven for Penn State is dominant. They can get after the quarterback. They can get TFLs. And as long as you're not big and physical, I don't really think they can push you around. I don't know that Oregon can push them around. So that's why I think Penn State can hang in the football game. But Penn State's offense, I don't trust them. I haven't for years. It's continued to be the same thing, man. Like, I've heard about Allen and Singleton for years, and I've seen him have big games. To me, the only guy on that offense that scares me is Ty Warren. It's nobody out wide.
Yeah.
Like, it's nobody. There's nobody that stretches the field out wide like you have on the other side with Tez and Stewart. So I think it's a 30-17 type of game because I think Oregon will get their points because they can do it a multitude of ways, running, throwing, short, throwing deep.
Yeah, really quickly, Cohen. One of the things that I think makes Oregon so dangerous is DP is exactly right. Their offensive line isn't dominant. They can get pushed around a little bit in the run game. But I think Will Stein has the best quick game package in college football when it comes to the pass game. I really believe that. They're able to supplement a lack of running the ball consistently. We saw it, with what they would do with Bucky Irving last year and Tez, and they got Tez back this year. Their passing game, the intermediate to the short, is so well thought out that they can get away with not being dominant in the run game. That's something I think that Will does a really good job.
It's one of the reasons that Bo Nix set the all-time completion percentage passing record.
Yeah, that was one of the knocks against Bo Nix going to the NFL was that they threw it short so much.
He's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But David Pollack, I agree with both of those points, and because of that, that's why I'm not convinced that this will be a high-scoring game. I know that it's going to be indoors, but I still think that this could turn into sort of a classic November Big Ten game where we see those defensive performances really step up and maybe the under will hit. I hope that Penn State embraces this opportunity to go play in this game. I hope that they have the mentality of, yes, we're glad that Michigan beat the Buckeyes so that we get to go and prove to the country who said we only played one one big game this year and lost it. We want a chance to go do that rather than having the mentality of, man, we would have just as soon stayed home this week and kept our ranking intact, and we don't want to go play in the conference championship game. I hope that's what they do. I can't pick them, though, for the same reasons you guys said. I have to go with Oregon. Oregon's been so steady and consistent for at least the back 6 weeks of this schedule. But let's see. Let's see what Penn State can do in the conference championship game. That takes us to the ACC.
You know what I want to hear from your mouth? No.
What's that?
Before we go ACC, I want to hear this from your mouth, Michigan, go blue. How about Oregon just came into your conference and just said, yeah. Hey, we're going to beat up on Michigan. We're going to beat up on Ohio State and beat up on Penn State. Like, the three people that have been running your league, like that have been the best three teams, we're just going to come in here with a broom and kind of sweep you out of here. So that's what you're saying?
A couple thoughts on that. One, Michigan's the defending national champion, and they just signed the #1 player that they've ever signed, and they just beat the Buckeyes. You can't get me down right now. Nice try. And second of all,
going to the Cheez-It Bowl,
Texas,
too.
hey, Texas trying to do the same thing to your conference, and we'll get to that one here in just a minute. But first, ACC Championship, SMU, Clemson. Obviously, we've talked about whether or not SMU is going to get knocked out of the conference championship, or maybe Rhett Lashley just gets them dialed in and they go beat Clemson by 40 and get one of the first 4 byes. How's it going to work out?
SMU picked them, so knew they were going to be here. 11-1. They laughed at me. They pointed at me after the Nevada game. After the BYU game, they threw vegetables at me as I would walk down the street. But here we sit, Rhett Lashley and the boys, 11-1. Come into your trap, take over your trap in the ACC. But Clemson's got to win, dude. Clemson's got to win, and they're not in. Dabo, maybe a little bit cringe sometimes. Okay, maybe a lot cringe. All right, he may say some goofy things, but Clemson's been here before, man. He's coached in these big games. He took down Bama. I watched him do it. So Dabo's team's not going to be intimidated. And I do think that Clemson is more battle-tested than what SMU is. They've seen Georgia. They've seen South Carolina, right? They've run up against some big dogs this year. I like Cade Klubnik. I like Maffa. I think Maffa's a Maffa. And when I look at this Clemson defense, I think Peter Woods is a stud, and they got some guys running around there. They can push SMU around a little bit. So they have to have it. They need to have it. People have told them they're not good enough. They just got punked at home by South Carolina with a 12-year-old at quarterback. Give me Clemson and the chaos this weekend. Clemson's going to beat SMU.
I agree. I mean, I'm rolling with Clemson, too. SMU's a Ferrari, but Clemson's an F-250. And, buddy, I'd rather ride in that F-250. I mean, who's SMU's best team they played against? How much do you trust SMU to walk on the field and be ready for this moment? I've seen those guys at Clemson. They played Georgia. All right, they play South Carolina. They know
what it looks like. Lost by 31.
I know, but they're still on the damn field. And I bet that game wouldn't be like that now. They just played South Carolina, who I'd put up against anybody in the country right now, and Cade Klubnik threw that game at the end. But I know Clemson can get it done on defense. I trust the run game, and I trust Cade Klubnik. Even after that mistake against South Carolina, I'm going Clemson. Give me money line, baby.
Come on, David Pollack. You do it, I'll do it.
I don't like this. I don't like this because I'm thinking I'm going to be the only one picking Clemson.
Me too.
And everybody's going to be on the SMU train, and I'm rooting kind of for chaos. But Jake, I love what you said to start because Dabo's played in 10 ACC championship games. SMU hasn't even played 10 ACC games, period. Period. In the conference. So it's a crazy thing, but the crazier thing to me is, Cade Klubnik, I owe you an apology because I didn't think he was very good. I'm not going to lie. I saw him leave clean pockets repeatedly. I saw him not take shots down the field, not be incredibly accurate. But that son of a gun has absolutely turned it around. And his offensive line has been a jigsaw puzzle of plug and play and injuries. But Clemson, man, and Klubnik in particular, he's steadied the ship. The run game hasn't been consistent. He has. He's about to join Trevor Lawrence and Taj Boyd and Deshaun Watson as the only quarterbacks in the history of Clemson football to throw for 30 touchdowns. He's in that era, and he's got a go-to guy with Williams on the outside now. He's got Wesco. He's got some weapons. I thought the game plan last week was really good. The defense is good. SMU is good, and SMU will be in this game. But I got Clemson 28-27.
Get the ball to Briningstool. Get the ball to Briningstool.
Now I'm in a blender. Now you're in my head.
Do it,
because I
David.
thought for sure you would take SMU. You picked them to go this far. You're not even going to ride with your squad. And I'm not going to sit here on this show and just let it be a clean sweep for Clemson. I thought I'd be the only one to pick them. I'll ride with you, Rhett Lashley. Yeah. Let's go, man. Please don't embarrass me.
SMU.
Please don't embarrass me. Let's go, SMU.
Rhett's going to be pissed at me. I know he watches. But listen,
all right.
SMU should still be in the playoff.
This is going to make up for everything. If they win this and I'm the only one who picked them, it's going to make up.
I'm going 9-3.
Just like that.
Terrible.
You redeem yourself.
SEC Championship game, Texas, Georgia rematch. To Pollack's point earlier about Oregon, Texas trying to come into the SEC year one, win the whole thing. Are they going to do it?
This is the hardest game to pick for me out of any of the ones, including Arizona State and Iowa State, with even with Tyson being out for Arizona State. You know, I've sat here and I've tried to think, all right, what's the difference? What's the difference? What's the difference? We've watched these teams play before. Georgia went to Austin, doubled up Texas. I think you're going to – I wish I could just take the under at 49.5. I think it may be the best bet on the board this weekend. I think they're going to be pretty conservative on offense with what happened last game, right? Most teams lose games. They don't win them. We saw what happened in the turnover battle last time, so I think you're going to get an emphasis on that. There's always an emphasis, but it's going to be double this time. I think you're going to see a lot of ground game early. I think you're going to see Arch Manning on the ground early with a couple pop passes off of it. You know, I've heard people sit here and say, well, look at the way Georgia looked against UMass. Look at the way Georgia looked against Mississippi State. Heard a lot of people say, look at the way Georgia looked before they played Texas last time, and Georgia showed up for that one. And I've heard everybody say, well, Texas lost earlier, and they're at home, so they're going to be the more motivated team. I think people forget Georgia had a chance to win 3 national championships in a row, something we never saw Nick Saban do. And this game they're playing in last year kept them away from that chance. So they've been pissed off about this game long before this season started. So I don't think there's going to be a motivational edge on either side. But we always talk about even Superman has a kryptonite, and Texas has looked dominant, elite. They pushed A&M around like the fat kid on the playground whose mommy always saves him when he gets in trouble.
Not Timmy.
But I think when Texas looks up and they see Georgia, something just hits them a little different. I think that cold chill goes down the spine.
Ryan Day, Michigan situation here.
You know, like I said, even Superman has kryptonite. I think Carson Beck is going to have a fantastic game against Texas.
Really?
Fantastic game against Texas.
He just doesn't like watching football.
Outside of that, I like the Bulldogs to win by a touchdown.
All right.
Give me Georgia. Give me Georgia to win it. All right. Give me Kirby to talk his ish with the visor after the game to make it 2 in a row. Texas, you're going to get close. Oh, so close, but no cigar. It's not like Oregon.
Blaine?
I'm torn. I've never had to question what type of a Georgia team's going to show up on Saturday. And with this Georgia team, you know, I do. And I know Haynes King's not going to be a quarterback for the Longhorns. It's going to be a little bit different with Quinn Ewers. Stationary guy is not going to hurt you outside with the run game. We'll see how much Arch Manning plays. But I just believe in Texas, and one of the reasons I believe in them is because of their defense. Mm-hmm. They have one of the best units from the front 7 to the back end in college football. They're fundamental. They know their job. And Carson Beck, even if that win in that Georgia versus Texas game, nobody looked good on offense. Texas turned the ball over, and most of the time Georgia scored. They were on Texas's side of the half anyways. I think Texas is a more complete team. I think Sark's going to know how to adjust from the first time they played. I like Texas in this game. It's going to be close. I think it'll be low scoring as well. Give me Texas by a field goal.
Riding with the Bulldogs, DP?
Love it. I love when there's already a disagreement and we're not going to go like 3 in a row.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because to me, styles always make fights. And the motivation was a big factor in why I picked Georgia to win the first time at Texas, because I thought Georgia was going to be ticked off and angry. Texas now has that, momentum going for them. Very strange to look at this Texas team and to think of where they are, because they are a run first, run second team. Like, this is a Wisner team or bust. They are not they are not bombs away like they were a year ago. Both these quarterbacks have had ups and downs. To me, the biggest difference is I think Texas's defense is elite, the best in the country against the pass. But Styles, I talk about making fights, is they don't fool you. They don't play a bunch of crazy, wacky coverages and combo coverages. Like, Texas is really good at what they do. They don't blitz. They trust their front four. They trust their speed. They tackle really, really well. I think that sets up good for Carson Beck. It didn't last time, but the middle half of the season, when Carson Beck was scrambled, he was awful. I mean, it was not a good 6-game stretch when he had 10 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. But the last 3 dudes, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I don't think this Texas offense is overly explosive. I think they're good, but I think Georgia's defense can stop the non-aspect of the mobile quarterback, can stop the ground game. I don't think Texas has burners on the outside like we're used to seeing. So I got 24-21 Georgia.
There's a large part of me that wants to take my home state team playing in Atlanta, Kirby Smart's defensive prowess. The defensive coaching calls in that first game were phenomenal to me, even more than just the dudes on the field. The corner blitz that got home, sack fumble, you start in the red zone, Georgia punches it in. Drop zone coverage against Quinn Ewers, confused him on the edge, put Georgia in the red zone again. I just don't think that Georgia's going to be able to do that same thing again against a Steve Sarkisian-led offense, which means it's going to be more about the players on the field. I think, Georgia's going to take some shots and hit them. Texas is going to take some shots and hit them. I like Texas in the game in this one. I'm going to take Texas by 2 in overtime, finding a way, win the SEC championship.
And I was like, the injuries on Texas side does matter.
That's the Banks kid. I'm telling you, like that, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss last game. You need all the soda. You don't want to be walking through the hot gates. You want to hope that the guy with the hunchback shows you the goat path to go get.
I also don't think
he was the main culprit last time.
Yeah,
he was the one getting beat.
Yeah, I'd help him out.
I also just don't think it's enough for Texas fans to be like, oh, you know what? We got packages for Arch Manning now, and we saw what Haynes King did for Georgia Tech against Georgia. Let's just throw a couple more Arch Manning packages, and for sure we'll be good. That can help. Let's have some of that at the ready, but that's just not enough against Kirby Smart. You need to have the whole package going.
For sure.
Did y'all ever think at this late in the season that we would be going, hey, Texas doesn't have Quinn Ewers. They don't have Haynes King. What? We never thought we'd be saying that. Golly, the Ewers has fallen off pretty bad this year and really struggled at times, and especially against Georgia. He was seeing some ghosts for sure with their disguise package they brought to the table.
Well, this has been a surprise year all around. David Pollack, you're the man. We appreciate you joining us, brother. Tell everybody where they can find you. The podcast, the work that you're doing, it's fantastic stuff. I try and catch as much as possible. Please tell our audience where they can find it.
You can find me on the YouTube. I'm still learning that world, I told you guys. But how about this? This is the craziest thing that you'll ever see from a dumb defensive lineman. I also wrote a children's book. Like, that's
really
crazy. Never thought that would happen. It's called The Won't Quit Kid. And it's actually, if you go to bravebooks.com, you can find it. It's Won't Quit Kid. And so many people are quitting sports at a high rate. Like, by 13 now, 60% of kids are quitting. And sports is such a great teacher in life. So I actually wrote a book to kind of parents and the kids. And so how about that? You never thought your boy would do that.
I'm ordering one right now for
You
my
never
kid.
surprise me, dude.
I tell you
kidding
what,
me? You never surprise me. Y'all go check that out. DP, thanks again for joining us, brother. You're the best.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
Thanks,
David
man.
Pollack, go check it out. Go buy that book.
I'd bet on Georgia.
I'm getting Adam one for Christmas.
Yeah, the man
already.
doesn't miss. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Look, playoffs almost set. Championship games this weekend. Let's get thick with it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.